All the inspiration you need for a garden-themed wedding.
Hi, welcome back to Bride Society. I'm Rebecca, this is Laura, and we are here with our latest installation in our sort of wedding themed videos to provide you with all the inspiration you need for your garden themed wedding. And there is a Pinterest board that supports this video, which we've linked in the description box below, where you can find all the images that will be popping up on the screen. So if you want to go there, follow us, pin some of those pins to your own boards so you can keep all your inspiration in one place.
So we're going to kick off with kind of decor and tablescapes, and one thing you will soon notice throughout this video is there'll be a running theme within the theme, and that is flowers.
Flowers. If you want to start a drinking game, now's the time.
So whether you're having an outdoor wedding or indoors but want to have a kind of a more garden theme, it's all about bringing the outdoors in or using your surroundings for your decor. So that's probably lots of flowers, lots of foliage.
Yes, and the types that you would find naturally maybe growing in your garden or the garden of the country that you're in. Or maybe like a wildflower type vibe.
And you're not even limited to kind of real or even artificial flowers with this theme. You can bring that floral botanical theme in other ways, and maybe with your tablecloth, so you could have botanical printed tablecloths on all your tables as just like a nod to that natural botanical garden look that you're trying to go for.
Yeah, and you can do the same with your other tableware, like the plates, the charger plates, those kind of things as well. Maybe even to the glassware if you really get into it. But with this stuff, we're bringing you a lot of individual items and images that are great for a garden themed wedding, but it's sort of up to you about how much of it you incorporate. So it might not be that you want every single thing you look at to be floral or whatever in that way. It might be that you want to take some feature from this video of, say, the tablecloths perhaps, and then keep other things around it more kind of neutral and keep the palette maybe sort of like greens, soft natural colours, but just have those kind of accents here and there on, like
throwing a garden at your wedding.
Yes, which you might think all of this, maybe not all in one wedding kind of thing, but yeah. So it's meant to be sort of taste as an inspiration where you want to pick it for places.
Yeah, picking and choosing what works for you and your style within this more general theme. If you want to have a huge foliage kind of overhead table display, go for it. If you want to have big, large wildflower centerpieces, go for it. It's picking and choosing the bits that work for you.
Yes, definitely. And in terms of those kind of tablescapes and those floral centerpieces, really fun ways that you could do that to kind of keep the garden. I mean, obviously they're flowers, so there's a garden element, but you could keep those flowers in, or herbs even, in plant pots or in sort of trough. Is that the word I want? Yeah. It just, we're saying the word trough and wedding in the same sentence sounds really wrong. Like planters, that's better. And things, so that they're still living plants that are there. And so obviously if you've got nice long tables, having those kind of trough planters, maybe running down the middle, could be a fun way to do it.
And the setting that you're having your wedding in as well will help with the theme. So you might actually be having your reception in your garden, or even your ceremony in a garden, or maybe a marquee wedding, a marquee venue works with this theme as well, more so than maybe a city centre modern hotel perhaps. I mean, you could still bring elements into that, but definitely for marquee weddings it works really well, or outdoors, because you've already got your beautiful surroundings.
Yeah. As doing the wildflower thing, or just single stems, if you want to go slightly more pared back, you put those in individual small glass bottles, and either in clusters or just dotted around, or say as a kind of table runner type thing. So there's kind of different ways to approach flowers within this very floral wedding.
In recent years, a floral trend that's really become quite popular in weddings is creating these flower meadows where it is like a cluster of wildflowers in like a meadow setting, but on a much smaller scale. And things like that work really well if you, well, along the aisle that you're going to be walking down, kind of line the aisle with an array of wildflowers or the flowers you've chosen. So it looks like you're walking through a wildflower meadow on your way to get married.
And another thought that I saw that I loved for this kind of wedding theme was maybe it's just, it could be decor anywhere, it could be at the end of your aisle, something like that, but having a pair of Wellington boots, gum boots, rain boots, whatever you call them in whatever country you're in, having those kind of stood at the end, like, but filled with flowers, so they're kind of being used like as a planter, but particularly if you're in a country like the UK where it rains a lot, it's sort of a nod to that.
Or if you're just keen gardeners and wear them out in the garden, works for that as well.
Yeah, if you're muddy. Yeah. So our next area of inspiration is bouquets and buttonholes. So again, flowers. So really a key here is to do with the flowers that would be in your garden at the time of year you're getting married, probably in the country that you're getting married. So that it really just seems like that reflection of your surroundings being brought into the wedding. So yeah, if you're having an outdoor wedding, it's probably more a spring, summer type time of year. So yeah, if you're early on, maybe things like daisies or pansies, tulips even maybe. And it lends itself really well to kind of a less organised bouquet. Yeah. Sort of a freer style, not something very compact.
Yeah, I think the whole kind of garden theme is a bit more of a relaxed wedding theme. So yes, you haven't got the really structured bouquets for this. It's maybe a bit more wild, but in a organised way from your florist. So a looser bouquets. Not the kind of really round sphere or the teardrop shapes. Nothing too formed on a frame of any kind.
Yeah. And you could also, if you want to incorporate any other little bits into your bouquet, maybe sort of like little butterflies, if it's not real butterflies, but those kind of things, if you can find a way to do it that sort of looks classy still, kind of thing. I think there's always a fine line when you start doing things like that, but it can be done.
And if you are getting married outside of the time of year that would be kind of abundant with flowers, but you still want to have more of that garden theme, dried flowers is a great way to go, whether that's ones that you've grown yourself and dried or got from a supplier. You can still have that feel and look, but at any time of year.
Yeah.
Next category is wedding stationery, and you'll be shocked to hear that it also features lots of flowers, whether that be real flowers or printed flowers. So something that I've seen a lot of in the last couple of years are these welcome signs that also include space to have flowers almost growing out of the sign. They look really effective, and it's a great first impression for your guests walking into your reception or wherever you've put the welcome sign.
Yeah. And also something that I've seen cropping up in the last few years, which I quite enjoy, is sort of like a seed paper, which obviously can get incorporated into your stationery in many ways. That might be through the name cards, like the place cards, through your invitations, through your menus, I guess if you were keeping those afterwards. So many different ways. So there's garden seeds that are built into the paper that is printed on. So afterwards you take that away and literally plant it in your garden.
Yeah.
So sort of an environmentally friendly thing. I think that really sits nicely side by side with the ethos of kind of a garden themed wedding.
Definitely. Having the more printed motif is probably a more budget friendly way of incorporating lots and lots and lots of flowers in the wedding, and it's a way to have the theme run throughout the entire wedding, from like your invitations to your name cards to your table plan to order of the day. Everything that you normally have as like printed stationery throughout the wedding, you can have matching, coordinating on theme.
Yeah, and it gives that, if it's on the invitations, it gives people that kind of like little taste of what's to come ahead as well. Yeah, but hopefully they don't plant your invitation too soon before the wedding, and then they're like, oh, what time is it? It's a poppy now.
Yes, if you are going for the plantable paper for your invitations, maybe write on the invitation, do not plant until after.
Yeah. Again, dry flowers can kind of come in here to like accompany things. So you might be tying your, like, if you have like escort cards with the names and table numbers on, you might be tying that to them to like some dried lavender, or like a little posy, sort of each individual card tied to a little posy. It almost looks a bit like a buttonhole, I guess, like a kind of little thing. So it becomes like theirs, and they can kind of take that, and that's their little, it's almost like a little favour. Yeah. It wouldn't be your favour, but it's a nice little touch for individual guests.
And the bonus of using dried flowers for those, obviously, if you're doing
preparation.
If you're doing it yourself, you can do it further in advance. You're not worried about them dying or wilting on the day. They are forever flowers, and hold up. You can do them way in advance, so you're all prepared and organised.
Yes, that kind of thing helps immensely with weddings, because everything takes longer than you think it's going to with kind of hands-on stuff. So really take all of those advantages in time games where you can get them, please. Even just down to things like if you want to add like a wax seal to your invitations, that kind of thing. You can get those with kind of a floral motif, or if you're having sort of a monogram made, say, with kind of florals embedded into that. Again, just a nice extra tiny little touch kind of way to bring things into your stationery.
And again, we're not necessarily saying you do all of these, but you can just choose a few of them if you want, and it will really just tick that garden theme box.
And so another thing we saw was for your table numbers, maybe like incorporating some like pressed flowers into things as well. So I think when it's going to be nice and like colourful and lively, and it's, I think, going to have a really nice vibe as a garden theme. Like it's uplifting.
And if you're creating those yourself as well as a DIY, they might be flowers that have been picked from your garden or from a loved one's garden and pressed. So again, you've got kind of bits of the people you love or the surroundings that you love as part of the wedding day itself as well.
Yeah, I really love those kind of extra touches like that. So this category is all about favours that lend themselves particularly well to a garden-themed wedding. So it's not going to be a big section, but ones that we thought were particularly cute for a garden-themed wedding.
And probably the most obvious choice is a packet of seeds.
Let your love grow.
So these can either just be, you could buy various packets of seeds and distribute those, or you can have them put in little personalised envelopes with something that says along the lines of "Let Love Grow," your names, wedding date, that kind of thing. You can either pick specific flowers that maybe you particularly like, vegetables that you like, herbs, or just
or like ones that were in your bouquet,
or just a mix, a bee-friendly wildflower mix, something like that. So there's like options within the kind of seed idea to like personalise it a bit more to you.
Yeah, and you can even give them in a little plant pot.
Yes.
Or indeed giving them a small plant as their favour, like again in little plant pots, and that, or a small planted herb to take away as well.
Bird feeders, that either bought ones, you can get them kind of in different shapes, or you can make it yourself. We've got a DIY on our channel which we can link. Make it whatever shape you want, and again, it's just something that you can your guests can put in the garden. It helps the birds. It's nice, just like tying on to that garden theme.
Yeah. honey jams, so maybe from like your local garden centre or at least a local supplier to you, to like help support the small businesses at the same time. And as well, like if it's local to your area and you've got guests that are like travelling in and things, that's quite a nice kind of keepsake from, well, not keepsake, you're going to use it, but like memento from that trip for that area. Yeah, and it might just be your favourite flavoured jam or a whole mix of them. You could customise the labels potentially as well. Or if you have a relative that's into their jam making, you can rope them in as well.
And we're hoping, obviously, if you are having a garden wedding, especially if you're thinking of an outdoors wedding, the weather will be kind. But if it's too warm, or if it's a warm sunny day, your guests might find a fan very useful. And this can also double up as a favour, so you can get some nice fans for each of your guests, so useful during the ceremony, potentially during the reception, and then they can take it away with them afterwards. We're now going to move on to food and drink, and one of our favourite categories when it comes to weddings. Lots of opportunity for tasty treats that go on theme, and especially if you're talking wedding cake, again, add some flowers on there, you're good to go. But maybe more specifically, if you're having like meadows of flowers elsewhere in the wedding, you can have a flower meadow sitting underneath your cake. And this was one of our wedding trends, I believe, for 2024. It's been around for a little while, but really increasing in popularity. A huge, well, it doesn't even have to be huge, floral display around the base of your wedding cake, which can then be quite simple and pared back, but really creates impact and really works with this theme.
Yeah. And if you're trying to just save a few pennies, a way of doing that could be, because obviously, like by this point, you usually will have had your ceremony. So maybe if you and your bridesmaids, if you're having them, have had some bouquets walking down the aisle, it could be that then, like at least maybe your bridesmaids' bouquets then get placed around the base, so it kind of doubles up the usage of them.
Or if you want to go even more floral, again, these pressed flower cakes are super, super popular, and they can like really bright, colourful flowers. You can have lots, so it looks like flowers are growing all over the cake, or just a few, but they're really a statement for your wedding cake and works really well kind of alongside if you're having lots of other flowers for the garden theme.
Yeah, I feel like there's quite a few different ways to incorporate flowers into cakes, like Laura said, like the pressed flowers, and I think you've done quite a lot of those for your clients.
Yeah, and I really like those.
And then, but you can have it painted on, or have, again, edible flowers, but like sort of pressed into the cake. Not pressed flowers, but like stems sort of stood next to them. Or indeed, like in your topper, like if you're having a cake topper, you could use maybe like dried flowers and made into a shape, just to again add a bit of floral element again into that.
If you're having welcome drinks, you can like zhuzh them up with some edible flowers as well, some little violas or pansies in each of the drinks, or even in the ice cubes if you're catering company, or if you're doing them, if you're providing kind of ice yourselves, make them really fancy by just kind of freezing some edible flowers in there.
Yeah. You might want to consider maybe having a hydration station, like maybe with some like fruit punches, or just sort of minty kind of drinks, lemon water, like those kind of things in like sort of, dispensers where people can sort of help themselves with the glass wear out, and maybe a few like bits to put on top, like a slice of lemon or whatever, so you have it all kind of laid out for people to help themselves so they can refresh at will, maybe like while they're waiting for the ceremony to start, or say during the drinks reception. Or if you're going maybe from like a garden tea party vibe, again, like you could have all the kind of more vintagey style like teacups and saucers out, and then obviously somewhere to like dispense hot water. So dresses, veils and shoes that lend themselves to a garden party, wedding, or garden wedding. So dresses, you can either really lean into the theme or kind of give more of a nod to the theme. If it's more of a nod, maybe you're incorporating sort of like floral like motifs and things into the design, but it's perhaps still more the classical wedding dress colours.
Or you can go full on garden theme
Full on.
and have maybe embroidered flowers in bright colours on that, and then maybe onto your veil as well. So yeah, just flowers, flowers, flowers.
Flowers. And even if you wanted to keep it more plain yourself, you could go that route for maybe the bridesmaids or the flower girls in particular. It's in the name after all. They could have kind of much more kind of floral, embroidered, patterned kind of dress.
And with the wedding dresses for maybe the garden theme, you're probably thinking less formal again, less satiny, really structured styles, the more kind of tulle and lightweight fabrics, so you can like glide along through your flower meadow, through your garden, wearing your floral dress. Like quite ethereal, I think it can be with this theme.
Yes. Also, maybe don't pick this theme if you're afraid of bees and you're having your wedding outside. I feel like you might attract a few. Especially on your dress if you go for this route. And if you go for your veil, again, you could still get away with a veil, even though that's more maybe associated with a more kind of structured formal wedding. But there are veils out there that, again, have these kind of colourful embroidered kind of flowers incorporated into the veil. And so I think that would then help bridge that gap between the kind of formal and the informality of a garden wedding.
And that's the way, if you don't want to incorporate too much colour into your actual dress, that's the way of kind of adding that statement colour without going maybe a bit too much.
Too far.
Yeah.
And then when we sort of shimmy on down to the shoes, there's a few different ways you can go here. So you could go that let's reflect it in the shoes and have ones that have either like butterflies on them, daisies incorporated into the design. But this could be an opportunity to bring out the flats.
Yes, especially if you're having all or part of your wedding outdoors on grass. Stilettos might not be the way to go. Or if you do want to do that, then we'd probably recommend some of those stoppers that you put on the
like
bottom
the heel
heels
protectors
that you can maybe put in a basket for all your guests before the wedding, so everyone's prepared. Otherwise you might be sinking into that ground.
Yeah, no. And there's a lot of variety as well in pumps these days, like, so it can still look quite weddingy. The other way to go is perhaps maybe like a coloured shoe or pump, because you might have concerns that with an ivory white type shoe, with kind of being on grass, like staining, mud, that kind of thing. So if you had maybe like a darker colour, if you're thinking about wanting to wear them again afterwards or them looking good in photos, if you maybe have a shorter dress on, for example, then that could be something to bear in mind when you're picking out your shoes.
The other alternative, if you do want to have a bit more of a heel on your shoe, but avoid the stiletto, is obviously either like a wedge or a block heel where you're distributing your weight a bit more across the ground. So yeah, less likely for sinkage, but gives you that added height.
Yeah, bridge the gap between the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So we've covered the shoes. We're now going to move right up to the top of our heads and talk about hair and accessories. And again, flowers. But more for hairstyles maybe you might be thinking of for a garden wedding. Again, the less like super formal, slicked back updos, you can afford to be a bit more relaxed. Maybe have your head down, half up, half down. With this style, you don't need to be as formal with your hairstyle as maybe some other themes would lend for that.
Yeah, and even if you do want it all up, it's kind of a loose updo look. In some ways, depending, again, when you're dealing with sort of breezes, wind, maybe having at least a half up do in some kind of way is useful, just for keeping it out of your face for sort of photography purposes. But yeah, maybe sort of just soft curls, that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Along the lines of some of the styles we maybe mentioned in our boho themed video, they also work well for the garden theme.
Yeah. You could bring in sort of like flower crown type element into it. full-on flower crown's cool. Or you can sort of build it in as more like a built-in headband if you're having like braids or your hair is partly up. It gives it a bit of structure for flowers to kind of weaved and pushed in. So you may be thinking like daisies, baby's breath, that type of thing if you're going kind of fresh with the daisies. Or so you could do the baby's breath that dries really well and lasts, or you can do that on fresh.
Or if you're having kind of a full loose plait braid, you can have it all woven all the way through that, and again the dried flowers will work well with that because they can be prepared in advance, and you know that they'll last all day. You're not worried about them fresh flowers wilting throughout the day.
Yeah, that's true. And they can be put onto little like hair clips in advance. So as I said, it can be either woven all the way through. As I said before, it could be done as a hairband. It could be done just if you've got like a loose updo bun. It could just be like sort of pushed into there. It's like, or just a little kind of bit across the back where your hair maybe crosses. So it can be as ornate or as all over or as pared back as you want. But I think a little bit of flower.
Yeah.
In your hair or your bridesmaid's hair, I think it could be a good look. This is our final category, and we are talking those extra touches just to make your wedding extra, extra special.
And the first thing you might think of with like a garden wedding, garden games. So if you're having part of your wedding reception outside and you want something fun for your guests to do, maybe while you're off taking photos, you can get things like giant Jenga, giant noughts and crosses, loads of different garden games that you can set up.
I did see a darts one. I didn't include a picture of the darts one because I was like, I don't think I would trust that with anyone with the drinks around, a breeze, children running around. I was just like, that was a hard no for me.
There's quite a lot of jeopardy in that one. Yeah.
And if you want your guests to get really comfortable and into the fun of the games, they may wish to take off their shoes, their heels, most likely, if they've maybe become ill-prepared for how like soft the ground is, or they haven't gotten the heel protectors to distribute the weight from the previous section. Then you could provide like a dresser or some kind of station where people can leave their heels, and particularly if you're doing something like providing a basket of like flip-flops or flat shoes, pumps, that kind of thing, for your guests so they can be more comfortable. I think it's just quite a nice touch.
Confetti is a key thing in a lot of weddings, but also can be classed as an extra touch, and for a garden themed wedding you would be looking at more natural forms of confetti, so whether that's things like cutting leaves up or having full leaves depending on the style of it, or just natural floral like dried flowers to act as your dried flower petals to act as your confetti.
If you're going down, if you want to, you're probably having a guest book. Most people have some form of guest book, but the way to kind of build the garden theme into that could be things like, if you're having like garden Jenga on the big blocks, you could get people to like sign those blocks, or I've been to ways where people have like signed stones, put their little message on a garden stone, and then that's either displayed, in like in whatever way, but obviously put out. I think that particular wedding they had like a glass topped coffee table that they could put them under the glass and it sat on top. You could put them in a vase. That's what it is.
If there's lots of outdoor time involved in the wedding, something you might not have thought of but is probably quite important depending on where you are and the time of year it is maybe providing some bug spray for you and your guests, just to avoid any nasty little bites throughout the wedding. That wouldn't be good.
And along the same lines, maybe having some antihistamines handy for your guests. So if you're doing things like providing the kind of washroom, bathroom like kits in the men and women's, maybe remembering to incorporate them into those, or just knowing that some key member of the bridal party maybe has them on standby in case you see some guests struggling.
And if you are including your pet as part of your wedding day, you need them to match the theme as well. So an easy way to do that would maybe be with like a floral lead or harness, just so they really are part of the wedding theme.
Yeah. So we hope you found some exciting inspiration for your garden themed wedding. If you did, you can find all the pictures that we've been showing you. I say they're over on Pinterest, so you can keep those and add them to your own boards, so you can be fully inspired. And yeah, if you liked the video, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe, because we're here every Friday with more content like this.